Little Legends Podcast is a Prediction Esports production. Support us by subscribing to the Prediction Esports Podcast channel on your favorite podcast provider. Hey guys, welcome back to the Little Legends Podcast. I am your host, Blevins. Joining me as always is Boop. What's up, man?
Yeah, feeling a little under the weather, but this is going to be the medicine that I need to feel better. Talking about the patch, talking about some dodge, probably some yordles. I'm super excited for this episode, Lev.
Yeah, this is a big one. This is certainly a big one for a number of reasons. Definitely the biggest of which is 9.19, which if you're listening to this in future podcast realm, in the future podcast world, we are recording this about an hour and a half. About two-ish hours after the patch notes preview was released. So this is, I did a very quick skim through before, but this is basically our literal first reactions to this patch. The finality of it, I haven't even taken the time to really internalize what a lot of the numbers and changes are going to mean. So we're going to be talking that out and having our normal patch preview discussion. That's going to be the biggest part of this show here today. But we do have, of course, at the top of the show, a little bit of housekeeping, as always. Guys, biggest thing here is, of course, we are part of the Prediction Esports Network. Make sure, if you have not already, go on iTunes or your favorite podcast provider and subscribe to the Prediction Esports feed. That's Prediction with 2 E's. That's the biggest way to support the show right now. We got our download numbers in from last week. Not bad, but I got to say we're not number one on the network yet, and I really want to be. So let's get those numbers up as soon as we can, and that will be great. In that vein, we got some brand new iTunes reviews, actually, Boop. We can take turns reading these as we got 3 new ones. Boop, do you want to take the first one here?
Yeah, I'll take the first one. This one's from Bendits, and before we start, hashtag be like Bendits, guys. The first one is a 5-star review. Teamfight Tactics and Little Legends Podcast brought me smiley face. It looks like a good mix of quality gaming pods. I'm a big fan of the Teamfight Tactics and the Little Legends Podcast. Smart move picking them up. Thanks for supporting my boys Blev and Boop. I'll have to check out some of your other casts. That was on the Prediction Esports channel for the iTunes review, so thank you so much. And I just want everyone to know, Blev and I do have a celebrity couple name. It's Bloop.
Yes.
So if you don't feel like typing in Blev and Boop, you could just go Bloop, and we'll know who you're talking to.
Yes, that is our celebrity couple name, Bloop, because Boo Levins, maybe for October, that's what we should be.
Yeah, that'd be great. That'd be fantastic. Brought to you by Boo Levins.
Brought to you by Boo Levins. God.
Hey, we made it much further than normal before going on a tangent this time around, so I'm really proud of us.
We
really
were
proud of us.
We casted last night, and we went on a tangent before we talked about anything else that was going on. It was probably not a good idea, but and we'll talk about that.
Professional.
Yes, we will talk about that tournament coming up. But our hashtag Be Like Bendits campaign continues because he did, or she, I guess I don't know. They left another review on our actual Little Legends podcast feed, quickly becoming a TFT and Little Legends podcast super fan. Thanks for the consistent quality episodes. With a game that changes so fast, I'm terrified to play TFT without first making sure I'm up to date with the latest cast. You guys take a very in-depth look into the game, cover all the important actionable info, and do it in a friendly, easily digestible format. Seriously helpful, and sincerely, thank you. From Bendits. Thank you, Bendits, for leaving that review. And that's great because I think, a little bit of insight into our minds before we even started the cast. When I approached Boop to do this show, we were brainstorming how we should do the show. Do we want to be the professionals talking about professional high level play? Spoiler alert: neither of us are good enough to do that. But even if we were, there's so many. Scara, Disguise Toe. I mean, you name the pro, they're making a YouTube video with high level content in terms of high level play, and we really wanted to be the sort of more personable, the every person's show, and I really think that came across in your review there, Bennett. So thank you so much for that.
Yeah, man. And so the next one is from a Bumpkin6515. 5 stars again, almost essential podcast. I wonder what we could do to get you over to delete that first word.
Yeah, I'm wondering where the precipice of essential podcast is.
Yeah, since I no longer have a bunch of time to sit down and research what the new meta is, it is nice to have it spoon-fed to you while at work. This entertaining and informative podcast will give you lots of tips and tricks that are essential for new players and low-rank players without boring you to death. Even listening to the first episodes is fun, even with outdated information. Oh, that's nice. Also,
nice.
It is great. Yeah, that's super cool. Also, it is great talking about champs that can carry, but could you also talk about ways to counter those champs? Of course we can. That's good feedback. Overall, A+ podcast. Keep it up. Thank you so much, awesome. Bumpkin.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for that. And make sure if you're listening right now on your phone, just hit that review button, leave a review, and we will read it on the show as long as it's PG. We'll edit it. We'll censor it ourselves if it's not PG-13 for whatever reason. But leave a review. Every single one helps on both ours and the prediction feed. Really does help. And yeah, actually, Boop, because I have access into the download numbers for the episodes. People are actually going back. Like some of our older episodes are actually still picking up some steam, so that's nice. It's actually kind of fascinating which ones are performing so well, and even the old ones are like getting views from new people coming in. So thank you everyone who's going back and listening to the full series from the beginning. I thank you. I've done that with podcasts that are like hundreds of episodes in. I'm like, nope, I like this podcast. I'm listening to it from the beginning. I actually listen to them on 2x speed and can try to catch up. I'm almost caught up on one of my favorite podcasts. But let's move on. Ooh, actually, one last piece of housekeeping that I almost forgot, and is actually pretty big. Boop and I just finalized the initial details of our Patreon page. So we are now officially on Patreon. You can go to patreon.com/Little Legends Podcast. You can support us there. We've got a number of different tiers of all shapes, sizes, and pledge amounts. We are actively working on different rewards and whatnot. So if you have any ideas for different rewards you'd like to see on Patreon, different goals you'd like us to hit. I know the Sean Connery meets Deckard Cain skit was a highly requested thing across multiple platforms. So that is the first goal up there. If you have any ideas for that, go to the Discord, discord.me/Little Legends Podcast. We have a show suggestions text channel there. Leave them there. Tag myself or Boop, and we will take a look at those. And we are actively looking to add more rewards to the tiers already.
Yep, super excited about it. It's just a great way to support the community even more. It helps us out to provide even better content, even better quality content, and come support us.
Yeah, absolutely. So patreon.com/Little Legends Podcast. If you have any questions, let us know. But let's talk about our week in TFT. Boop. Anything fun and exciting happen for you?
Well, I had a pretty slow week. Usually I get a couple games in a day, but I was off visiting family over the weekend. I had to miss fight nights because of it. I like how I say that, like,
you missed game night. You didn't miss fight night. Fight night was
I missed game nights. Yeah. And so I like how I'm like super disappointed. I had to see family, right? I couldn't game with the bros. But it was good. We actually went to the Washington State Fair and we made a killing on carnival games. Everyone won something. I actually won something off the ring toss. which is
Wow.
pretty difficult to do.
That's
I
rare.
used to work in the theme park industry, and that's one of the ones that you rarely win. And my sister won, the clown game where you have to hit the clowns. And so
Uh-huh.
they were like rigging it against us, and they were like, "Oh, you have to knock the clowns down onto the ground in order for it to count." And she was the only person apparently that was able to do it that whole day. So congratulations to her, and even my mom, as cute as she is, got the horse racing game, and we were just making a killing. And we got about 7 stuffed animals, which equals about $100 worth of game time. So I would say we are about like diamond to masters players at the Washington State Fair.
We're challenger level carnies here.
Yeah, yeah. But in terms of Teamfight Tactics, I played a game before we played Fight Nights because I needed to get warmed up, and I ended up winning off of like this weird like 5 glacial elemental
Hmm.
team comp. It just like countered everyone that was in the lobby,
Nice.
and so it ended up just working out, and I got back up to Plat 3, which is fun. That's kind of like where I like to live. And so, yeah, you got to eat a bunch of oysters. I had 15
Ooh.
oysters at a
Wow.
buffet and with some crab legs. But yeah, that was my week.
Yeah, oh man, I'm doing it again. I'm saying yeah too much. Chat, make sure you yell at me every time I say yeah, because I need to like just like spray bottle like a dog. But
Like we would just get you a shot collar. I will control it, right? I don't know
just
if you
every
can
time,
do
ding,
that, but every
ding,
time it's
ding.
just like, puh, that's good content, man. That's going up on Patreon.
That's true. Yeah, get a shot collar every time I say yeah. Yeah. Yeah, no, man,
I wonder
I
if we
am.
could make like a chat command from it.
Oh God, there's no way I am tying my physical pain to chat because that's just a recipe for death.
Sweetest
But
content.
speaking of recipes for death, I had a roller coaster weekend for me with TFT. I finally saw, or not. I finally saw. I finally figured out, or I did actually see a comp that has sorcerers and shapeshifters in it that I actually can run to some success. I've known for a while that shapeshifters and or sorcerers are such a powerful comp, and I've just never been able. Sorcerers has been the bane of my existence in terms of playing it. I've just never been able to get it to work. And now with the Twisted Fate and the Lulu comp, the Four Wild, actually the Chinese Four Wild comp, which I believe it was Ace of Spades posted the video, at least the one that I saw, going over that Four Wild comp. I ran that a bunch, or at least I added it to my repertoire of comps that I can build, and I think I really, I had a roller coaster weekend. I think I ended up a couple of points. I only ended up a few points away from where I started. I don't remember if I was plus or minus on the weekend, but I went super far down and super far up and ended up right about where I left off in Diamond 4. But having that comp in my repertoire really, I think, it broadened my ability to play as just a player in general, because now, before, I was very focused on Ranger comps and Draven comps. That's really where I lived. So if I didn't have a bunch of bows and a bunch of swords, I would be really weak if I had these sort of Giant's Belt and Needlessly Large Rod items, because I'm like, well, I can have the Draven, but if he has like a Seraph's Embrace on him, it's like, it's not good. Like, so having this comp that can use items that don't require bows necessarily was really good for me in broadening my horizons as a player, and just broadening my spread of comps that I can play was really good. So I definitely suggest learning other comps that not only use different units, but use that rely and are amplified by different types of items. I think that really leaves you even more open, which is one of the most important things you can do in Teamfight Tactics. But let's move on here and talk about some of the news of the week. Big piece of news here is, of course, Heroes Hearth Fightnight happened last night, and you've got both of the casters right here. Myself and Boop did cast the tournament. And Boop, what were your initial thoughts? This was your first time casting Fight Night. I had one other Fight Night. Technically, I had two Fight Nights under my belt. One as a player, one as a caster. This was your first experience into the Heroes Hearth Fight Night realm. What were your thoughts on it?
Oh, I thought it was amazing. I thought like immediately what was really cool about it is I felt welcome, right? Going into any like
Mm-hmm.
new community, there's a little bit of apprehension, right?
Sure.
But this one, I shouldn't have had it, right? These peeps in this community were were awesome. Like
Yep.
I have nothing but like great things to say. I was a huge Heroes of the Storm player, so I was like latently aware of this community from other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I finally like dove in. Thanks to Blev for bringing me in, and everyone involved was super cool. From Jules and Alex, who was helping out in Twitch chat, and all of the players.
Yep.
It was so awesome. So definitely check them out. They're friends of ours and a friend of our communities, and we'd love to spread the love for us as well. They let us plug our own podcast on
Yeah.
their on their production, which is super cool. Other than that, it's just like a good time to cast with a good bud of mine and look over some really cool TFT and see how the pros do it, and get involved in Heroes Hearth a little bit more in the future, hopefully. Because again, I cannot say this enough. Everyone was super cool.
Yeah. Yeah, really great tournament. Really just like a nice community focused tournament. All the proceeds from the bits going back into the pot there. So really just a great tournament and high level. I mean, a lot of these players, if not all of them, they're all at least grandmaster and above. And there's a lot of challenger players, of course. Our boy Sphinxy boy from our own community was in there representing burning bright early, but not quite getting there. Oh, and Sphinx is in the chat now too. Sphinxy boy, burning bright early, not quite getting there in the end. But we did actually see, we saw the returning champion from last fight night, Jinx JK, end up getting second. And actually, this tournament was crazy because it was super close at the end. Every single, with the exception of 2 players, so 6 out of the 8 players all had a chance to be in the top 3 going into the last round, and we ended the last round with a three-way tie, which which is insane, right? And we ended up seeing Faye, the queen of Fight Night, or at least what we have declared as the queen of Fight Night. Ended up winning the tiebreaker. Jinx JK, who again I said got second, was the returning champion, and Raditz also was tied there. Ended up getting third. They'll all 3 of them be invited back to the next fight night, which will be announced at some point in the future. Make sure you're following Heroes Hearth TFT on Twitter for that update. We'll also, I'm sure, tweet it out as well. One interesting thing, Boop, about this tournament was that we really didn't see Void Assassins in this lobby.
No, a guy named Zeus was the one that tried to run it. He tried to force it 2 times, never got the spatula.
Mm-hmm.
And I would, normally you would say that's a feels bad, but I don't know if that is the correct definition if you're avoiding Void Assassins. And then he finally did get it, and then got 5th. And so it wasn't the end-all, be-all that I think some people expected. The other thing that was, a couple other things that were really odd were not a ton of Ashe at all until like the very end, and we saw a ton of gunslingers to varying degrees of success. Sphinxa boy understands that. But going back to the Void Assassins, I just wanted to say I'm sorry, Mort. I know that last time I got a little emotional talking about Void Assassins and balance and all this and this and that, but it really wasn't an issue. Even when someone was able to run the full Void Assassins with a level 3 Zed and a level 3 Kassadin with, I believe, the appropriate items on him too, it still wasn't enough to get into the top 4. So obviously there are counters, but it still just feels bad to lose against, and I think that's really what it kind of boils down to, and where a lot of those feelings come from. But more to you where maybe I should not have gone so hard. That's a tip of the hat to you and the balance team. And this next patch, it's probably going to be a lot harder to run anyway. And so, not a lot of Void Assassins, not a lot of Elemental Ranger Glacial that we saw a ton of in the Omega Esports League, but lots of ASOL, lots of Gnar, lots of shapeshifters, and lots of gunslingers.
Yeah, the gunslingers was interesting. I had heard rumblings of it, the hyper roll gunslingers being a thing again. I just never had tried it out myself, and we saw almost every game, actually. We saw at least one person try. I think there was 3 people going for gunslingers in the first round of that game. So it was really we had a couple of our friends of the podcast are actually going to be playing in the Twitch Rivals Open tournament, and Kamer the Gamer actually was asking on Twitter about, what should I do to prepare for this tournament? And really, I think watching tournament play itself obviously is the best thing to do. Not because you're going to be seeing high-level players, because you can watch someone stream or watch them play on the ladder. It's a different dynamic, and we've seen this two times now where there's the I guess the macro meta, as I'll call it, where in the world of TFT, the macro meta, S tier, shapeshifters, S tier, void assassins, but then there's the micro meta inside of the lobby where maybe in this case void assassins was not S tier. It seemed like everyone was ready for that and really prepared heavily around that. On the same hand, Rangers and Glacial was not playing out like an S tier comp in this micro meta of this lobby because we barely saw it. So being able to adapt and adjust to the specific lobby that you're in was something that was really huge, and I think a lot of players were trying to preempt that, right, and go that gunslinger. It's like, oh, well, if everyone's going Void Assassins and everyone's going Rangers, I'm going to go gunslingers. I'm going to get them all. I'm going to have all these 3-stars. Well, like 3 people had that same thought. So it's again like that. Like, how many levels deep in this game are you? Does your opponent know that you know that they know that you know that you're going rock, so they're going paper, or that, like, what level are you on here? And if too many people are on the same level, you end up having what we saw in 3 sort of failed gunslinger attempts in the first game. So really interesting. The tournament dynamic is really interesting and much more different than I thought it was going to be, kind of going into TFT esports compared to the ladder. I thought that it was going to be like, well, tournaments are cool, but like we can just watch ladder and it's the same thing. It really has not panned out that way.
Well, I think the cool thing about it, and if we take like Hearthstone as a comparison, right? When you're playing Hearthstone and you start losing, you depend on the right cards to show up. You got a top deck, right? But what's really cool about TFT is you could swap decks in the middle of a game, right? And so you can swap into Rangers, you can, Gunslingers can go into a Blade Master comp a little bit later, and it's just really cool how versatile and how fluid some of these comps can be as you make it into the late game. I mean, especially with those shapeshifter comps, a lot of TF came into play. Some twisted fates definitely showed their face. We had an attempt at a Yordle comp, but yeah, again, one of one of the coolest things about TFT is you can start a certain way, and just how the game evolves, you might be forced to play a different kind of deck, or you might be able to lean into what you're already trying. It's not, your expectations might not be realized a lot of the time going into a lot of these games, and that's really, really cool for TFT esports. It makes the diversity in each game a lot more likely. But in terms of that, though, it was funny because even though we had a lot of comp diversity within lobbies, the comps that won were all pretty similar outside of the game that Cladius won. And I think Sphinx had, knight shapeshifter type of a situation with like a level 3 Nidalee with a knight bonus on it. But it was mostly A-Souls and a lot of dragons, even though everyone else was playing other things.
Yeah, it really did seem like in every game, with the exception of that last one, we did see. Was it? No, yeah, I think it was the actual last game. Maybe it was the second last. Don't remember. But most of the games, 75% of the games we saw had Gnar, Shyvana, and Aesol, and then some combination of other units. We saw Faye was favoring the Twisted Fate a lot. Some folks were. I think there may have been 1 or 2 running the 4 wild comp that I talked about before. Really, I mean, it makes sense, right? Because that comp is good against a lot of other comps, specifically against Rangers and against Void Assassins. But it's also kind of good against itself. And the game that we saw Sphinx win, I don't want to say that I predicted it, but there's literally video of me predicting it. I called that he was going to win because, he had put the Dragon's Claw on the Gnar, and a lot of other players had a bunch of items on their Aesol, and I'm like, well, you've got in Sphinx's build specifically, there's 3 units that have not magic immunity but heavy magic resistance. So when your damage output is ASOL, and that's that sneeze. I mean, that's why I started calling the Dragon's Claw the salad bar sneeze guard. You're not taking all that. You're not getting that ASOL snot on you when you've got the Dragon's Claw and 2 other dragons. So, and Sphinx is actually talking in chat about Curseblade as well. In these long, prolonged games where it's going to overtime a lot of the time, because there's a Shyvana with a Warmogs, or a Gnar with a Bloodthirster or something, where these battles are just these behemoths just whacking and smashing each other over and over again. The more attacks you're getting off, the longer the game's going off, the better an item like Curseblade is going to be in that sort of mirror match. So Sphinx really, again, even more micro, like the minuscule meta of like, okay, I need to be able to beat the mirror match here, the other comp, really kind of paying off. And we saw Sphinx win that first game in really great fashion there. So yeah, I mean, but that was really a nice bow on the end of 9.18, because we're going to be moving into 9.19. As I mentioned before, the Twitch Rivals tournament is actually this Saturday. There's going to be 2 portions to it. There's the portion with the open tournament that is going to be feeding into the finals bracket, where we saw the qualified players already play and get in there. So really a big tournament, a LAN tournament. This is one of the first, big LANs that we've seen at TwitchCon here for Twitch Rivals. So really interesting. And it's going to be the first big tournament played on 9.19. So what are you looking forward to here for this Twitch Rivals tournament, Boop?
I just more competitive TFT. The more that we see it in front of us, the more familiar I think the community becomes with it. And I think Twitch Rivals has a good audience, and it draws big names. And I'm excited for it to be the star again. I think there's been, just like any other release, I think Apex went through this too. We're at that moment in time where the players that are here, right? And I think that there's a good amount of interest still remaining. And all we need now is that spectator client that's going to help us cast a little bit better, along with just more opportunities, right? It can't just those opportunities can't just go to the same 8 to 16 people every single time. And so the more tournaments we have, the more people like our buddy Sphinx Boy can participate and make a name for themselves. And it's really important that these opportunities are there, but we don't have them without funding, we don't have them without interest. So it's really up to us for the community to help out, and that's exactly what Twitch Rivals does. So you can get into the details of all the other stuff, but in general, it's nice that it's there, right? And it's gotten a spot at the stage, and people are going to be watching it. And I think there is going to be a nice audience for it, because if you like Hearthstone esports, I think you're gonna like TFT esports, right? It's not. I think there's a lot of crossover there. You're allowed to like more than one game, everyone, just so you know.
True.
And
in fact, encourage.
And exactly. And so you don't have to say, oh, Underlords is better, or oh, this is better. We can all like everything, and it's good for everybody. And as a genre, it's really good for it to appear at something like TwitchCon.
True. And if you do like multiple esports, you should check out the prediction pod. You should check out the prediction podcast, because there are a lot of other great shows besides our TFT show. But speaking of all that, that's all great. Esports is great. Love esports, but we gotta get into the nitty gritty here. We gotta talk about 9.19, and we will do that right after a quick break. Guys, if you are liking the show, please make sure you leave a review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to. If you're watching us on YouTube, make sure you subscribe to us there. And you can subscribe to us and check us live on Twitch at twitch.tv/theblevins. Of course, the home of all of our content is at discord.me/Little Legends Podcast. We also just launched our Patreon. Check out patreon.com/Little Legends Podcast and support us there too. And we are back here for the meat and potatoes. Thank you, everyone who has stuck around so far. We are talking about patch 9.19, the brand new, hot off the presses. So let's start it off like we always do and read the little intro we got here from Riot Beer Nana. It says, "Hey tacticians, welcome to Teamfight Tactics patch 9.19 notes. It's a big one this week, headlined by the introduction of Kai'Sa and the new sparring glove items. We're also making a few small adjustments to the mystery box system. Overall, we like the way it's changed. There's a little typo. Right, if you need an editor for your page. Like the way it's changed the game. It just needed a few tuning tweaks. We also made a few changes to breathe life into two underperforming Tier 5 champions, Anivia and Misfortune. Finally, the first version of Match History will make it live sometime later this patch. It's only the bare minimum right now, but we'll be adding features over the next few patches. That's huge. I didn't see that earlier. I knew it was on PBE, but I wasn't sure if it made it into the notes this time. So we're going to have some amount of match history here. So that's pretty great. So let's
now we can see how good our friends are.
That's true.
On their profiles and compare and contrast.
Yes. Now let's get into it. Boop, you want to start us off with Kaisa?
Kaisa.
Kaisa.
Sorry, that was
Kaisa.
Exactly. I'm not the one with the voice. Okay, says the guy who gets paid for his voice. Anyway, Kaisa is the new champion. Origin is going to be Void. Class Ranger. Class Assassin. Cost 5. Health 700. That feels good. Armor 20, yeah. Attack damage 55. Remember, folks, the attack damage is going to be low because she has, I think, the highest base attack speed at 1.25.
Yep.
Starting/total mana is 50 to 125, and her ultimate ability is Killer Instinct. Kaisa dashes to the furthest enemy unit, shielding herself for 300, 600, 900, and gaining 30, 60, 90% attack speed for 3 seconds.
Wow.
I think this is a super fun mechanic. I can't speak on the numbers because I don't know how it's going to work. It's interesting to put a shield on someone like this. I feel like that's where a lot of the fine tuning can come into.
Yep.
But everything here seems good. Health might be a bit high, but other than that, I think this feels good, especially since she gets a shield.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm definitely going to troll immediately and build AP items and see if I could just get like a huge shield on Kaisa and see if that's going to work out.
Yeah, I remember seeing her played a little bit in PBE, and she's gotten some tweaks and changes, and I think there might have actually been a bug at some point that was causing her to die super early. But she did seem a little bit squishy, which makes sense considering she's a Ranger Assassin. But she's going to be potentially doing true damage, again, depending on if you have Void. I mean, you obviously don't need Void to make her be decent, but I'm imagining, you're putting static shivs on her to get that attack speed. You put a Rage Blade, she's getting even more attack speed. And the interesting thing is, I'm not sure if she has the mana cap. I know there's a couple of champions that do, but a lot of them don't. So, she's getting attack speed when she ults, right, which is going to help her charge her ult faster, which is going to give her attack speed again, which is going to so I'm imagining there might be a way to get to a critical mass of attack speed and mana generation where you're just in that ulted form at all times, constantly regaining that shield. I'm wondering if she gets the attack speed buff and the shield for 3 seconds, but what if she gains mana? What if she gains 125 mana in 2 seconds? Does it stack on or does it reset back?
I would assume that it would reset back, but you can't trust us on that one because it just says attack speed.
It's possible to do that either.
Well, it could be you put a bunch of attack speed on her. Maybe she's in a wild comp. I think Wild Rangers could be a fun little comp to try.
Yes.
A little after this patch, but I think the big thing here is just. Yeah, you got you got a shield, you got attack speed, but it's got to be. I think the balance here is where that attack damage lands because that base attack damage isn't that high. I think it's where I think it's where Cassidy is right now.
You might be right,
I believe. Actually. Or maybe 5 less. I'm not. I think Cassidy might be at 50 attack damage right now. So
Cassidy's as right now, he got. We'll talk about it, but he got nerfed down to 40, so it's 5.
For this patch, though.
Right. Yeah.
So currently, though, it's at 45 or 50.
It's at 50. So she has 5 additional base attack than Cassidy right now, 9.18 does for a 5 cost. So, yeah, her attack is not her attack damage is not huge, right? But again, 1.25. That's faster than Kale. It's fast. Like it's she's attacking a lot. So there's different ways you can take advantage of that, and she's also potentially getting that ranger bonus too, right? Like she can attack that 3 times in succession. So, man, getting like a static shiv or something on her is just going to trigger so much. Like she seems like she could be really fun to build, and you can build her in so many different ways because she has so many different.
Yeah, like, do you build her with attack damage? Do you like invest in an IE, or do you try to do on hit? Right, like because of the attack speed, it might be cool to put like a sword breaker and a hurricane on her, right?
Yeah.
And to see how that works out. And
Wow.
you could, if you're like me, for some reason I'm obsessing over this shield because of that one time someone put a Rabadons on a Yasuo against me, and all I want to do is just see if that's like a thing that you can do, right? And you put wild buff on her, you get shiv. There are so many different options that's based off the fact that her origin's void and she's 2 different classes. This is like what I feel a 5-cost unit should feel like, and I'm really, really excited because she also has, in my opinion, some of the best sound effects in League of Legends, League of Legends proper. So I'm super excited to see how they transition that into Teamfight Tactics, because the sound her ult makes is awesome, super satisfying. So overall, I'm actually really happy with all of this. I don't foresee this being as ridiculous as Pantheon, but maybe we could be wrong. But,
we were wrong about that originally, but
we were half wrong, right? Because we were like, he might be too overtuned or too undertuned, right? And he ended up being overtuned. This time around, it feels good. So
yeah,
we'll see what it's like on live.
Yeah, it does seem like she does have effectively she effectively has like life steal, or has life gain, right? Because she keeps gaining that shield over and over again, but it's a temporary shield. So but it's only a, like, it basically adds, if at level 2 it'll add like almost 100% of her health at level 1. So she gains some health, but she can still get burst down, right? Like if she gets critted by an assassin, like that's still going to hurt her pretty bad because she has pretty low health comparatively to that. So she's definitely going to be counterable. The cool thing for me with her is that every time she gains that shield, she's jumping at the furthest enemy, right? So she's not staying in the same place over and over again. If she's in a 1v1 with someone, she can dash away essentially and de-aggro and move to another target, which on the one hand is good because that means that she's going to stay alive longer. But on the other hand, it could be almost like a reverse Camille in a way, where like she's not finishing a target, right? Like she's in a fight, ults, okay, jumps to the other side of the map. In a fight, keeps going, doesn't necessarily kill anything, jumps to the other side of the fight, which could be good in some ways, and could be, I think, maybe frustrating in other ways. So it'll be interesting to see how. I think my inclination is that there's ways that I personally think are good to build her that aren't going to actually end up being good because of that fact that she's not staying on the same target until it dies.
And in the chat, so it seems like some people are thinking that she's a little undertuned. She is squishy. The reason why I said that her health felt high a little earlier is because I might be overvaluing the shield a little bit, because she's got to get there too. And so I think the big thing here is, as a 5-cost unit, right? Like what we're gonna get a little philosophical. Are you ready? What is that, right? Like what is the correct power level for the 5-cost unit? Is it going to be? Is Kaisa going to feel more like a Nivea, or is she going to feel more like Yasuo, or is she going to feel more like Swain? Right? I feel like those are like the tiers. Right. Sure. And right now it seems like, based off of what I'm seeing and reading, she's falling into the MF and Nivea side of things. But once you upgrade her, things might change, right? Is that intentional? Is that something that you want? Like, how strong should a level 1 5-cost unit be, right?
Yeah, I mean, this makes me feel, it makes me think of and I'm going back to Magic the Gathering references here. It makes me feel, it makes me think about like what is a mythic rare, what is a legendary in Hearthstone. Is it just a really powerful card, or is it something that feels thematic, or is a not necessarily an in-game powerful effect, but a unique effect, a unique ability? And I think she errs more towards the uniqueness and the sort of versatility. She does a lot of things. Obviously, Ranger, Assassin, Void is a very interesting combination of origins and classes. So I think you take a look at something like Yasuo or even Swain, both of those units are just inherently powerful. Yasuo, you can just put in any comp and he's good, right? But he's also not contributing to the synergies of your comp at all unless you're running Blade Master. But you can put a Yasuo 1 or a Yasuo 2 in your Shapeshifter build or your Shapeshifter Sorcerer build and be just fine because Yasuo is just powerful in and of himself. Swain similarly can go in a lot of different comps, but Swain also, he's less inherently powerful than Yasuo potentially, but he contributes to your synergies better than Yasuo does. And also, you can put certain items on Swain and be really, really powerful. Like if you put a Warmogs, a GA, and a Morello on Swain, he might actually be unkillable.
Yep.
And so I think Swain's ceiling might be higher than Yasuo. Maybe not because Yasuo is just really good, but that's another conversation. Kai'Sa feels less like I don't think Kai'Sa goes into every single comp in the same way that Misfortune's not going into every single comp, Anivia's not going into every single comp, and even nowadays, Karthus isn't going into every single comp. If you have a Draven comp, you're probably not running a Karthus unless you also have Phantom randomly. So I think Kai'Sa is in that category more. I think she's in a good spot from that sense, and maybe she's undertuned. Her values are undertuned, but that's an all right place to be because again, like we saw with Pantheon, you can adjust the dials.
I'd rather them go in undertuned than overtuned personally,
Right.
and to buff them up. And so the other question I have, and just thinking about this, is say you're running Rangers, right? And attack speed is what you want to do. Like, wouldn't you rather have your items on Ashe anyway, right? Or someone else? Because as a level 5 unit, you have to look at our opinions evolve right in front of our eyes. Wouldn't you you would have to get those items on her later on, right? And you might already have your level 2 Ashe and be able to try to carry, and to have her just be tacked on like that does feel a little weak. So we'll see because you would have to hold on to those items that might be better on someone else anyway.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
It seems like she's if you're going the Assassin's route, I think you're right. The Ashe is still going to be your pinnacle carry. I don't think if you're running 2 Rangers or even 4 Rangers, I don't think the Ashe is ever the cut unless you. Well, I mean, it could be if you have 2 Rangers. And again, this is right off the top of our heads, folks. This is why you watch live. You have 2 Rangers, Ashe and Kindred, which I think is the generally accepted best 2 Rangers to have. You get to the late game and you have your you basically are choosing between Glacial and Phantom. And if you had, I mean, you probably almost always want Glacial, but if you're going against Yordles, for instance, you might actually just want Phantom, right? If you have Phantom and you've got 2 static shivs, you might keep the Kindred, sell the Ashe, and put your Guinsu, your Rage Blade, and 2 static shivs on the Kai'Sa as an upgrade potentially. Now I don't know if that's better, but it might be.
It's definitely something to think about.
Yeah.
Right? Like, and is that sacrifice worth it? Is
Right.
the final question, which we won't really know until the comps start coming out. But these are the questions that are fun to ask ourselves once these new characters, because they interact with each other in very interesting ways. It's not just like a single unit coming into the
Right.
game and, oh, they're going to be able to carry, right? Because when you initially read, just like us, right? When you initially read something, it might feel good, right? It might look good, but when you peel those onion layers back, when you start getting a little deeper, you start thinking about the fact, well, it's a level 5 unit and it's going to be harder to put items on because they're going to appear a little later, and I might want to have someone else carry. And in terms of team comps, like this, and that,
Yeah.
it's it's interesting to think about.
Yeah. I mean, what I think makes her feel more, I want to say legendary, but I guess a 5 cost, which I guess is kind of like legendary, is the fact that she's like the cherry on top for assassins, rangers, and voids, right? Because, do you really want to be running that Rek'Sai if you don't have to? Especially since we're going to talk about the void change, or we've already talked about it before, but it's now 2/4. So do you want your 4th void to be Rek'Sai, or do you want it to be Kai'Sa? Probably Kai'Sa. Or you can cut your casting, you can upgrade a lot of different comps with Kai'Sa. Even if she's not the hyper carry, she's going to be a good part to a lot of different comps. And I think in a lot of ways that
Kind of like
feels...
Morgana, right?
Yes.
In a demon comp, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that makes sense. But we should probably move on. We got a
Yes.
ton to talk about.
Yes, we do. And we're going to move on here to the sparring gloves items. We're not going to go through every one in depth, because we did do that when they originally revealed the items. And not a lot of these items have changed a ton. So we'll just kind of quickly go through these, and then maybe talk about some ones that stick out to us, given our new knowledge of what possible metas can come up. So, of course, if you are new, the sparring gloves are a new item, new component that gives plus 10 critical strike and a plus 10 dodge chance. When building an item out of a sparring glove, the item will convert its core stats to either the offensive 20% critical strike or defensive 20% dodge option. Thieves' gloves and mittens get both. That's
okay.
interesting.
That's a specification that wasn't in the original one.
Yes.
So
maybe we should
that's
read
good to
through all
know.
these. Yeah. So thieves.
No, I think that's the only one, really.
Yeah. Thieves' gloves and mittens get both. That's nice. That's interesting. So man, mittens, your Yordle's item, Boop. It's getting better and better as we read.
I am terrified of Dragon's Claw mittens, or just Dragon's Buff mittens. Just magic resist plus dodge. It's gonna make wilds a little bit more important. But yeah, next up is Infinity Edge. It's gonna have a different recipe change. It's gonna be sparring gloves plus BF sword, 20% critical strike chance increase, and that's the stats. And then the effect is 150% critical strike damage. So it's just a recipe change.
Yep, recipe change. Infinity Edge saw some play before. I now understand why it's saying the stats change, because before it was plus however much attack damage, because it was 2 BF swords before. Now it's just plus 20% critical strike damage. That's interesting.
Chance, yeah.
Critical strike chance, yes. Interesting. Yeah, I think probably not the best one here of the new items, but I guess we will see. The next one here is the repeating crossbow. That is the sparring gloves, of course, and the recurve bow. The effect is on death. This jumps to an allied champion and grants an additional 20% attack speed and crit chance. This is one of the cooler items.
That's such a fun item.
It's so fun.
Yeah, I'm so glad they're exactly that they're doing something like this. I think the memes will be hilarious for something like this, especially when because what would suck, right, is if all of a sudden you're repeating crossbows on your Lulu, right, and you're like, Lulu die, Lulu die, you need to give the item away,
right?
But overall, I think this is a cool mechanic, and I'm looking forward to see how this goes, because it could either just be meme worthy or really, really good. I could see this being good in Assassins, but we'll see.
Well, I mean, my thought is do you put this do you put this on like a squishy champion at the beginning just to sacrifice them, meet shield for a second, and then jump it out over? I feel like the ultimate like final champ to have it on is like Volibear. Like if it goes down the line and then your last unit is a Volibear that gets that gets the repeating crossbow, that seems pretty strong. Just having so much attack speed and crit chance with the lightning for Volibear is interesting. I am assuming that this will only go on a unit if it has an open item slot, which is kind of awkward because it will never go on like your hyper carry if they already have 3 items. So,
but there are a couple items here that like you kind of want to leave some open item slots because there's another one coming up that will give you items and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so the next one is Jeweled Gauntlet recipe is sparring gloves plus large rod, and this one is your spells can crit. So the reason why I'm excited about this is I think it's pretty accepted that Yordles are at least going to be experimented upon.
Oh yeah.
Ill.
I mean, I can personally guarantee that.
Yeah, because of all like the dodge things, I think you can get up to like if you somehow get 9 Yordles, like really close to 100% dodge, and this is really fun because I'm just so excited for these mages to pop these Yordles like pimples, right? Just crit them and just watch them die. I will relish every moment of it. I might just start playing sorcerers just to experience the off chance that I go up against the Yordle squad. And my question here is, I wonder if does it interact with the Ludin splash?
No,
So,
I
like,
don't. I'm pretty sure it doesn't because actually, I'm pretty sure Mort fielded this question on his stream because that Ludin Splash isn't actually a spell; it's just an effect.
Okay, cool, but still, right? It's gonna if you do have
Still
Ludins, it'll crit and add even more damage. I think it makes that item a little bit better, but yeah, I'm excited to just watch these Yordles pop. It's gonna be fun.
Yeah, that's Jeweled Gauntlet is definitely another one of the cooler items on this list. It'll be interesting to see how good it actually is, but it's going to be fun at least to try out nonetheless. Next one up here is Hand of Justice. It is a sparring glove plus a Tear of the Goddess. The effect is on round start, gain 40% more damage or 40 life on hit. And I've seen this get played on PvE. You actually, in the planning phase, it gives a little visual effect of what you're going to get. So it'll either give you like a little red thing like Imperial buff or a yellow one. So am I getting lifesteal or am I getting damage? This one, I think, I'm wondering like who you put this on. I think someone like Draven is probably good. I know Mort was talking about Volibear.
Gunslingers.
Gunslingers,
could be good on a gunslinger
because every single hit.
I could see this being really, really good on Lucian.
Yes.
Because if you get the noble buff as well, that's what 65 damage.
It's
life
be
70
on hit. after on this new
70
patch because they're buffing.
So
life on hit for nobles.
That's a ton, right? Yeah. And so there's a lot of options here. I think you got to be a little bit more big brained on how to use this particular item, and not knowing what you're. I mean, the fact that it's a 50-50 going into the rounds, you have to make sure that your unit can benefit from both.
Right.
But yeah, I think this is an item that could like sneak in to a meta like halfway through. Right. This might not be like super strong as we start, but like as we move on, we might see more play on this one as people explore it a little bit more.
I think that the sparring gloves, I think there's going to be a lot of good items that you can build out of them, but there's not a ton for tier, and I think this is a reasonable one to build. So, if you end up with a lot of tiers, this might be a decent option there if you are in an attack build. Yeah, there's not a lot of options for tier in a build that wants attack damage. Although this is 40% more damage. So does that count spell damage too? Is it just 40% more damage across the board, or that I'm not sure of. It just says 40% more damage. So like, am I getting? I don't know. I guess we'll see. But if my assumption is correct, it's just attack damage, and yeah, I think you just need to be playing like Gunslingers does sound really great. Nobles, noble Gunslingers, of course. It does sound really good on them, and I know Mort was saying Volibear is a nice one because every one of his hits with the lightning triggers this, so it's doing 40% more damage on each thing, and he's getting the 40 life on hit for each
I
hit
miss
of the lightning.
Volibear.
Me too. He was one of my
I think
favorite.
Volibear is such a cool, like, and he's just like thematically like really cool.
Yeah.
So I know that he was like when Demon Bear was around, he was oppressive and not fun to play against. But I think I hope we see I hope we see him a little bit more because I think his AOE thing could change metas, and
Mhm.
I just miss him. He's just so cool. The roar comes through, then the
Yeah.
lightning comes through. You stack like your on hit items, shrink a bunch of people at once.
Mhm.
Uh, I do miss them. This next item also is a little interesting too.
Mhm.
And so that's Iceborne Gauntlet, which is one of my favorite items in proper League of Legends. Recipe is going to be Sparring Gloves plus Chain Vest. Effect is on dodge, creates an expandable zone that lowers attack speed by 35%. So I haven't seen this in PvE just yet. So I'm
I have.
assuming that when you dodge. Okay, so explain it to me.
It basically puts a little blue. It turns one of the hexagons into a little blue freeze hexagon, and it expands out every time you dodge. So when someone is
Okay,
on
cool.
that blue hexagon, they get the uh, attack speed lowered, and it stays out the whole that whole round. So if
All
you
right, so who would that be good on? I actually could see that being pretty good on Yordles because it would
yeah,
probably interact with
yeah.
inherent dodge of Yordles, right? So,
Well, I mean,
who would
there,
you build a chain vest on? Gnar.
Poppy.
Poppy. Oh, Poppy's probably really good with this one.
Yeah, I
I
think
think Poppy's just a solid
yeah,
unit. I think she's probably one of the best balanced champions in the whole game.
yeah. She's so good that she came to life and came into my room.
Shen, yeah, Professor TFT, that's a good
Shen.
one. Shen for sure
Oh
because of the
yeah.
ult.
Oh god. Well, actually, I mean, does it work with? Because like, it seems almost like a wash with Shen because I guess you're gaining more alts. Yeah, it seems all right because he's like, he's not dodge. He's just dodging fewer attacks during his alts, I guess. Oh, but that increases. Okay, no, never mind. Never mind. I'm an idiot. I had a smooth brain and then I re-wrinkled it. I get it now. I get it now. I wrinkled my brain back.
We just had
Yes,
to
now it's
water it
very
a
good
little
with.
bit.
Yeah, I
Yep,
had to
we just had to
water my brain
water.
a little bit.
It had to germinate. Yep.
Yep, we got there.
But yeah, I think the Yordo might be pretty underestimated with this Iceborne Gauntlet because that's not really an item that you would build on any Yordles. I think in proper League of Legends, this is like an item that you usually build on. I think like the only one who really builds Iceborne Gauntlet is a character named Ezreal, and
Good old Ezreal.
yeah, that's about it. So yeah, so we'll see. Anyone with inherent dodge, I think, will be good with this.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, my only problem with this is like chain vest items. Like you really have to get to a higher crop because you always want Guardian Angel. Like it needs to be really good. I mean,
That's
if you never get a
true.
sword, that's one thing. But man,
But if you're playing Yordles and say your lobby has a lot of Rangers, right? This could
yeah,
be one of those like end game scenarios where I don't know if you're building Iceborne Gauntlet at the beginning of a game ever,
sure,
but
sure.
you might be building it a little while later and
Yep.
countering some other people in the lobby.
Yeah, no, I like it. I think it's again it's another fun item, and I guess we'll just have to wait and see how it actually ends up panning out in terms of playability. It definitely seems like a niche item, at the very least. Like I think it can be very good in certain scenarios, like you
Hmm.
said, where you build it late and you completely
I think
counter
the game
someone.
needs more like good niche items, right? I think that's what
Yeah,
they wanted, like Titanic Hydra to be,
yeah,
or Hex. I think Hextech Gunblade is a great example of a good like niche item for some
hmm
people, right? You put it on someone like Kennen, or my favorite recently has been Lysandra, and it can work for
yes,
you.
yeah,
It will fall off a little bit later, but I think it's good. I think Ionic Spark is another good one to
yes.
think about. I think it'll hopefully fall into to that category.
I think Iceborne Gauntlet is almost like the opposite of Ionic Spark in some ways to me because Ionic Spark is one of those items that's like really good early, like super early, like it being the first item you make, but
When
it's
people have less HP.
when people have less because there's a flat amount of true damage. and then it really falls off a bit in the late game. This is almost like the opposite, where it's like, okay, well, you have Iceborne Gauntlet, but like it's not that good because you don't really have that much dodge chance inherently early, and then late game it can be devastating. So I think it's similar in some ways, but it's almost the opposite in other ways. But I think that is probably the hallmark of at least an interesting item. Moving on here.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, just like sorry, like one more thing. I think like the big thing here is that it's you don't want to get like trapped into like a cool thing, right? Like you don't want to get debated because
cool, like
it's like an ever expanding
gauntlet.
circle, right? And so you have to like think about, okay, so what are my other items? What are my other options here? Like say you're at a carousel and there's an Iceborne Gauntlet there. Maybe you can take it, right? But just like again, Professor TFT says, who brings up another really great point, these other glove items are so good.
Yeah.
Right. Plus the fact that Chain Vest does build into GA and Red Buff.
Yep.
And so when is the appropriate time? It really is like hyper late game to finish off your last two opponents. And I still think that's good. I think like we need items like that in the game in general for those late game scenarios, because that's how you just add another layer to the game. And I'm okay with that.
Yeah. I mean, I'm thinking this is like the bottom tier of gauntlet items, and it also might be the bottom tier of chain vest items, honestly. But I do think it has it's very good in a specific case. So
very
that's a cool
specific.
Item. That's a cool item to have, where it's like, well, this is bad most of the time, but when I get it, it's going to be a really cool, potentially like game changing item for me. The next one,
next item's kind of the same thing, I think.
Yeah. This next one is it's called Quicksilver. It is the gloves plus the Negatron cloak, and the effect is when CC'd, cleanse the CC. So don't take the cleanse. You don't get CC'd, and it has a 0.5 second cooldown. So yeah, I mean this is cleanse the CC. Okay, so I guess that means every 0.5 seconds you cannot get CC'd.
So is the period after CC, and I don't, because 0.5 it feels like it should be a 5-second
cleanse
cooldown.
the CC, 5-second cooldown.
5-second
okay,
cooldown.
I was gonna say
yes.
that did seem really strong. I'm like, why doesn't it just say you can get CC? Okay, that makes much more sense.
I read it. I remember the first time I read too. It can be really hard.
Let's not start a inter-host Q-lash here, okay? Brought it back around.
You're the one. Yeah. You're the one that keeps bringing that around. That was so funny when you did that, because you were so real about it. You really thought it
was not a bit. I still do.
It was not. So this one's really cool because it's only good against like glacials, right? Or it would be good against some other like Cho'Gath or something like that. And so the question here is, do you put it on your carry? Because cleanse would be, there is an item called Quicksilver Sash. In League of Legends that carries will buy. It builds into something called Mercurial Scimitar Scepter or something like that. But basically, like if there's a lot of CC on the other team, your carry would build it. I wonder if that's going to be the same kind of thing here. Like, would you put this on your Draven? Would you put this on your Kaisa? Would you put it on someone else, or would you put it on someone who has like Katarina, who has an ult that you don't want to get interrupted?
I think possibly. I mean, the obvious difference between League of Legends proper and TFT is that you've got twice as many slots in regular leagues, so you can actually afford to like use up an entire slot to devote to CC mitigation. Whereas, I guess it depends, because like some champs, you really want that third item to really get them at that hyper carry status. Someone like Draven, I mean, you usually want two like offensive attack items. You know, traditionally you'd want a RFC and maybe an Infinity Edge or something. A Bloodthirster is kind of like a half of both. It's an offensive and defensive item. So you might want, like, if you did like two super offensive items for someone like Draven and then that could be really good, because Draven is one of those champs that just gets completely shut down by something like Glacial if you get stunned for too long and just dies because he usually relies on lifesteal of some sort.
Because like I think what would be crazy would be like we'll talk about this item in a second, but like Deathblade plus BF Sword plus Quicksilver to keep him alive. I think that could be a really great combo for some carries out there. But yeah. Anyway, next up is Trap Claw. I love the name of that.
I think this was called Backhand before, so they definitely changed they changed the name. Probably for the best.
I think Backhand is a little bit better, but
it's a funnier
Trap Claw
name,
also.
But...
Trap Claw. It sounds anyway. So recipe is
well, if you say it like that.
Effect is on combat begin, gain a spell shield. When it breaks, stun the champion who broke the shield. And so that's different from Quicksilver because Quicksilver will refresh itself and cleanse, as opposed to Trap Claw. You get the spell shield, but you only get it once, and it's like a CC. So it would be really good against anyone with a hard CC that you need to kind of take out of the game early on. The unfortunate thing is like for single target CC, that's really great. For someone like Cho'Gath, it's going to hit everyone else anyway. Right. So you're going to find a little less value out of it, but it could definitely find its spot. I think CC in this game is just really is good in general. So you're providing that, but Giant Spell also can build into some other things that you want, but we'll see.
Yeah. The other thing to note about this is that it's not only CC that this triggers off of, it's any spell, or at least that's what I am led to believe based on what it says. It's any spell. So if you get hit with an ASOL sneeze, that's the first spell that's cast on you.
That's right. Sorry,
stun it. The notable thing here is it doesn't say how long this champion is stunned that breaks the shield. That seems pretty relevant to me, honestly. Are they stunned for 1, 2, 5, 100? Are they stunned for the rest of the match? Like, it doesn't say how long the stun is. And I mean, it's really like, again, I guess this begs the question, like, is this going on your carry or is this going on your tank? Like, I don't know. This does seem like this almost seems like a different type of Dragon's Claw, kind of. Where if you're just taking one big burst of damage like an ASOL sneeze, it seems really good to have this versus Dragon's Claw, because like they both do the same job of like you not taking the damage, but this one actually actively punishes someone like the ASOL for doing that. So this just seemed like an interesting, different item to build in lieu of a Dragon's Claw if you want that type of effect.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, if it's a giant spell, I think they're going to try to get it on tanks in general, and so that's what I'm thinking. We'll see how this goes. I don't know how long the stun's going to be, but in the end, if you have a sparring glove and giant spell laying around, you can put it on a tank. That health will be really nice. Plus, you'll get the dodge chance too.
True.
And so that could be nice for your tanks. Or really anybody who you want dodge. Like that's the thing. Like the dodge can be good on anybody. Do you want it on tanks to be tankier, or do you want it on someone like? Do you want it on a carry who might not receive as many dodges, but one dodge could be the difference between you winning a round or not, right?
True.
So, or like if you put dodge on Draven, it's one axe, which is more lifesteal with your Bloodthirster, which could get you to that 1v6, right?
Yeah.
And take that out. So, well, we shall see. This next one is really cool.
Yeah, it is. It is a definitely a fun one. Probably the most fun one, honestly. It is a sparring gloves plus sparring gloves. So if you get two, you can make this. It's called the Thieves' Gloves. The effect is this item takes all 3 item slots, so you can't put it on a unit that has another item. It costs 3 slots. And on round begin, copy 2 random items. Now, one thing to note about this is, again, this is from Mort's stream. They're not actually random. They're not purely random items. There are combinations of items that you can get, and it's a random choice of those combinations of items based on, I think they pre-picked like a bunch of different combinations of items, and it's also dependent on what level, I believe, your hero level, your player level rather. So you're not gonna like get two infinity edges right at the beginning. You're not gonna get two completed items right at the beginning. You're gonna get lower tier items when you're at lower level.
That would be insane.
Yeah.
If like you find your two sparring gloves from your NPC rounds, and then all of a sudden you've got like two IEs on on your graves to start, that'd be crazy. But yeah, that's cool. That's that'll be fun with some memery as well. I will go ahead and take the next one, Blev,
well,
I know you want me to.
I do want you to. I definitely set this up for you to take the next one. But one other thing I wanted to say about Thieves Gloves, again, that I learned on Mort's stream. Make sure you check him out, twitch.tv/MortDog. There are no spatula items that can be created with Thieves Gloves, with the exception of Force of Nature. So you can literally get an extra unit from Thieves Gloves for a round, which is insane.
Okay, so mittens. Recipe is sparring gloves plus spatula. Effect: this chant also counts as a yordle. So this is just an excuse for me to hate everybody. I think so. I can hate everybody. I think visually they get smaller.
They do
on the board too.
Yep.
So that is kind of cute.
That's a nice little touch.
But yeah, and I remember we used to talk about this when we first started. Like, what would that look like? Who would be the funniest Yordle? And now it's a reality. I think this is gonna find. I honestly believe this is gonna be an item that we see on Dragon. I think Yordle Dragon comms will be a thing going into this next patch. Like just the interaction between Dodge and Dragonclaw just feels really strong. It's part of the reason why it got nerfed, I believe. It's not stated in these patch notes, but I can guarantee you that would be a huge issue if they didn't change any of those numbers going into this patch, because ASOL with dodge plus crit would be nuts.
Yeah, they definitely did preempt that. I mean, we saw yesterday in the Heroes Hearth TFT Fightnight when Sphinxy Boy ran the Gnar. He had a Dragon's Claw on Gnar, and that's just like, it's so hard to kill a Dragon's Claw Warmog's Gnar. What are you supposed to do to kill that? And they want to at least make there be the semblance of an answer to be able to kill something like a Shyvana Yordle, though I'm still not convinced that there's anything you can do about that. But yeah, Mittens is a cool item.
Well, I would. Okay, cool. Yeah, that's definitely a word for it. I'm just leaning into my hatred of. But we'll see how it goes. I mean, 9 Yordles is a possibility going on. I mean, like this is what I mean. Like you can have 3 dragons and 6 Yordles.
Yep.
And see how that goes. If you somehow get the ability to make 3 of them Yordles, that'd be obscene. I don't see how you lose that lobby unless it's against Wilds.
Yeah.
But we'll see the impact later on, because it's not like the spatula items outside of like Blade Master, I feel like gets some heavy play, some Demon and Sorcerer, but they're very situational. You have to kind of decide you're gonna go for those breach synergies pretty early on, and so we'll actually see. But just to like put it out there, they also get the dodge inherently with this one.
Right.
And so you get the 20% dodge and the attack damage, and it could just be like a good one to put on if you have those 2 items a little while later. It's still 20% dodge.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times you can just run a Gnar or a Cannon or a Poppy, if you have a combination of 2 of those 3, you can just you don't need the third one to be able to go through Yordle's buff if you have Mittens, and you can just put it on like your Shyvana, and that it's just so good because those Yordles in and of themselves are very good. So being able to get that Yordle buff on other units is going to be real strong. I do think that this is going to be one of the more built spatula items. But the one that you missed, Boop, was of course Yumu's Ghostblade, which was running rampant this last patch.
Oh yeah, that's right. Well,
it was still niche because it was only one comp. But I mean, also there was the Grave Sassadin build I saw as well. But that was a different monster. Speaking of different monsters, the next item here is the Death Blade, which is now what is built if you have two BF swords. The effect is on kill or assist, gain 15 attack damage until end of combat, and this stacks infinitely. Now, does this actually stack infinite? Is it stack actual infinitely, or does it have a built-in stop like Rage
Like
Blade
Rage
does?
Blade.
Yeah. I mean, there's only
Probably
so
like
much you
Rage
can
Blade.
gain. I mean, there's only so much you can gain, right? Because there's only, I guess, like theoretically, there can be like 12 units on the board. So I guess the highest is 180, like theoretically, because if you killed all 12 units, like you'd get 12 times 15. Yeah, I mean, I guess that makes
Or
sense.
assist. So this will be good odd gunslingers just in general.
Oh yeah.
Jinx is coming to mind. Draven comes to mind, even though he's not a gunslinger. Just like he's the one killing the people anyway most of the time.
Yeah.
So I think it'll be. I think, and two BF swords give you a ton of stats in terms of attack damage. So I think it's one of the more simple items out there. Even though like it has stacks infinitely, like this is a carry item. It
Yeah.
says the word death in it.
I'm just
But
wondering.
I am going to try to put it on a Lulu and just see what happens.
I'm just wondering, like, at what point is this actually a good item? Because, like, just having two BF swords on, like, that's all right. Is getting one stack gonna be like? Is that make it worth it? Like, and like, how many times have you had a Jinx that like doesn't get the like? It doesn't get rockets off, right?
She doesn't
Like,
get excited.
it
Yeah.
just like it feels so lackluster, and especially like with the popularity of BF sword, like with just so many items you can build. Bloodthirster, you can build Guardian Angel. Like there's so many items that are good with BF sword. I don't know that this, like, the effect in and of itself seems all right. It seems fine and maybe is even good, but the fact that it's costing you two specifically BF swords, I think is going to keep this one. I don't know how
On the
much we're
lower
going to
tier.
see this one. I think it is on the lower tier, just in general, just compared to the other items that you can build with BF swords.
Next up, Giant Slayer recipe BF sword recurve bow. This is exciting because
Yeah.
sort of the divine's no longer in the game, and it's another recipe for it. Attack steal an additional 5% enemy max health as true damage. So brawlers aren't like amazing right now, but it'll be really good against those. If brawlers do come in, this will be like a required item.
Yeah.
And it's good with anyone with a ton of HP, so it'll be good against
Shapeshifters.
shapeshifters as well.
Yep.
And so it's the Shyvana might not last as long, and
Mhm.
this will keep some. I think again, like I keep thinking about gunslingers. Anything with like on hit, like 5% max,
Mhm.
gunslingers will do really great with. Blade masters will do really great with.
Yep.
And even though we saw gunslingers and blade masters in that tournament yesterday,
Mhm.
none of them won. So this is how I think you make it into that late game. With items like this, so this is good because that BF sword recurve bow for Sword of the Divine sucked.
Yep.
So now I think it's like a legitimate thing that you can ask for. Plus attack speed with it will be nice. Plus you get the extra damage from the
Mhm.
gloves. It'll be good.
Yeah, I mean, this seems like a nice Kaisa item actually, because she's got such high attack speed and is going to be doing that just base true damage no matter what. So she might actually be able to kill off, her targets before she ults away. So definitely an interesting one. I think Giant Slayer is actually in the top half of new items. Might actually be. I don't know if it's the best one. I think it's top three of the new ones. Um, but it's also like it's a unique effect. It's nice. I like the direction that these like. I mean, this is the first time we've seen new items come into the game. I like the direction here. It feels a lot like the like first expansion set of a new game, kind of like Magic or even Hearthstone, where it's like the first wave of items is like okay, very pretty basic effects. It's like Bloodthirster just adds damage and lifesteal. Gunblade just adds like overall lifesteal. They're good effects, but they're very straightforward. A lot of these items are like, I got to really think about this. It's like on dodge creates an aura of attack slow. It's like that's not very straightforward, and I think just given that fact, I think we're probably going to be right about maybe even most of these items, but I think there's going to be one or two of these that we're just dead. We're just dead wrong. We're going to look back on this episode and be like, oh, stunning a
Why does
person that
anyone
casts a
listen?
speed.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, because we're
Why,
just
why are
so
you guys
great.
here?
But no, I think there's going to be some sleepers here for sure, and maybe some that we overvalued as well. But let's jump down here and talk about some other adjustments we got. We'll start with the player damage. Riot's official statement says, with the loot changes, we've noticed a slight acceleration in game speed, leading to the players going out much quicker than we intended. So we're lowering the player damage slightly. So 1-star tier 2 is now is going from 2 damage down to 1. 2-star tier 2 is going from 3 down to 2. 3-star tier 1 is going from 4 damage down to 3. Tier 2 3-star is going from 5 damage now down to 4, and 3-star tier 3 is going from 6 damage down to 5. So your I guess your most commonly seen units, right? Your tier 2 1-stars, those are what you're going to be seeing most often, right? You're doing
Yeah,
less
I
damage
think
on all these.
just in general, I think the game has always been in a better spot when the games have been on the longer side,
More
and
fun, right?
so
You get to play more TFT.
yeah, and I did notice that a lot of people were dying before chickens, and so this is
Yep.
probably a good change. The next one is also a big one. Not big, but there's one change here that I do really love. The new system has been a positive for mystery box system adjustments. The new system has been a positive addition to the game. I agree, but needs some fine tuning. So we're making a few adjustments. Common boxes average gold value decreased. Uncommon boxes average gold value decreased very slightly lowered the odds of gold boxes showing up. Okay, tier 4 units can no longer drop from uncommon boxes. That's the one that is the big one for me. Slightly increase the odds of Nico's help dropping from all boxes, which I also really like because I ended up loving Nico's help just in general. I think it added like a whole other layer to the game, and it's kind of like one of those situations where, like, or in another game, it's like an ultimate where, in Overwatch, for example, if you're playing Pharah, a lot of people just won't ult until they can kill like 4 people. Right. And do you wait for the big ultimate or do you use it early for the one? And I feel like Nico's help is the same way, right? Am I going to hold this until later for a tier 2 5-star? Am I going to use it now to start win streaking and this and that? And I would like more of that and more of that kind of decision making going into the game. So all of those changes, I agree with.
I mean, I liked the gold boxes showing up more. I liked the gold boxes in general. I just like I like seeing more stuff. I know that it it swings having more gold boxes swings the disparity between the highs and lows of placements and the high and low rolls of RNG, which people don't like. But I don't know. I always want to see more stuff. I'd say just like normalize the average number of gold boxes seen by people. Like just have it be similar and close. But they didn't want that.
But then they wouldn't be gold, right? They wouldn't be legendary if everyone gets a legendary, right? So.
I mean, that is a stance to take, but yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with it. I just am like, I'd like seeing those, but I'm not. It's probably better.
I think there were too many spatulas in the game, just in general. Because I remember like a couple times, just like being able to get like 3 or 4 spatulas. I think. This is my theory that maybe they're wanting you to get spatulas more often at carousels. And make that a little bit more of an interactive experience, right?
Sure.
But we don't know. But yeah. I see where you're coming from. I'm okay with it decreasing a little bit. I don't. We have always fallen on different sides on RNG just in general. I've always been victimized by it throughout my entire life. So I'm coming from that portion. So we'll see. But we got to get going through these traits and stuff too. So those changes are on the smaller side. And we don't know how much they decrease. It could just be like 5%.
Right. Probably won't even notice.
We'll find out. Yeah. So yeah.
Yes, let's move on into the traits. Starting with Dragon, due to how easy it is to get magic resistance and lack of options to play around it, we're lowering the strength of Dragon, the buff, and Dragon's Claw. Dragon 2 is going from Dragon 2 and Dragon's Claw are going from 83% magic reduction down to 75% magic reduction. I mean, seems good. A lot of the things that we talked about already just really make this make sense. Dodge plus magic resist is no fun in terms of being able to beat that. This is sort of a preemptive mitigation of that. Overall, just
and
needed.
it's gonna make the jeweled gloves a little stronger because you
Yeah.
can crit on the Dragon's Claw
True.
holder or dragon, and it'll do a little bit more damage. And I
True.
think like it shouldn't have been like a cancellation of sorcerers,
Right.
and I think this will help that.
Yes.
The next thing is Glacial, another change that I'm happy about. Glacial procs are a little too powerful. Yup. So we're making a similar consistency change that we did to a Swordbreaker and applying it to Glacial. Glacial stun duration goes from 2 seconds to 1.5 seconds, but Glacial stun chance goes from 20-30 to 45 to 20-33 to 50. So when you have your 4 Glacials, you're actually going to stun more often, but for less time. And I like that. I like that a little bit more.
That almost seems like a burf to me. I mean, maybe I didn't do the math, so maybe it's just worse. But that seems like consistently stunning seems better than the extra 0.5 seconds. But I could be wrong. I think.
Well, I think it gives the other character a chance to retaliate a little bit, and makes the Glacials a little bit more vulnerable. We'll see. It could be a burf, but 3% is not that much.
Right.
It's when you finally do get the 6 Glacials, which no one was really running 6 Glacials.
Right.
And so we'll see. I say that a lot. I think we'll see is probably the number one thing I say in this podcast.
Well, I mean, we'll see if that pans out. But
yeah, and yeah, and so Yep. 45 to 50. This is another change that might like just feel a little bit more frustrating, or we might not see. Might feel the exact same, but 2 seconds is a long time. In this game, time is money, right? So a half second less, even though you might be getting stunned more often, it's just kind of a quality of life thing. It feels like.
I agree. Now that I'm thinking about it, 0.5 seconds is not equal to 3% increase of stun chance. Like those two changes are drastically different, and the 0.5 seconds is much more drastic. So it's definitely, I mean, I think it's a very slight burf that leans more on the nerf side than the buff side, but I mean, I still struggle because it almost gets reverted if two champs are attacking that same unit. Like you're still in the same loop, but I guess that's always going to be bad. We'll see. Now I'm doing it, although I was doing it before. Let's talk about Void here. We've mentioned it before, but with the addition of Kaisa, we wanted to lower the power of early Void. However, we still want to open up more build options and reward those who fully commit to Void. Void is now a 2/4 buff. At 2 voids, 1 random void champion deals true damage this combat, and at 4 voids, all of your void champions deal true damage. So just again, I mean, not a burf. This is just a straight nerf, because although I guess technically it is a burf, because if you only had 2 voids before, now it's better, right? Like if you only have a Kassadin and a Rek'Sai, it's better than if you only had a Kassadin and a Rek'Sai before. But overall, that like hyper roll Void is going to be much harder to do now. But you can still get the payoff in the late game if you want your Kaisa and your Kha'Zix and your Kassadin to go off. You still can.
It's like when you're running Imperials and you have a Draven and a Darius, and your Darius gets the Imperial buff.
Right.
It's not what you want, but sometimes it lands on the Draven, and that's amazing. And they're moving voids into the same thing. I happen to land on Yordles once again.
I've
but this one's
mastered
okay.
this perfectly.
We've removed RFC's ability to ignore dodges, so now it only exists on Wild. Because of that, we're pulling a bit of power back out of the Yordles. The introduction of Mittens also means we're adding a new 9-piece chase option. And those chase options are just you get a bunch of spatulas and you get the extra level for those synergies. Yordle dodge chance goes from 35 to 60. Goes into 30, 60, 90. So it's only a little bit less at the beginning. It's the same with your 6 Yordles at 60%. Yeah, and this is good because too much dodge will be frustrating. So they're gonna have to balance that around it. Maybe they'll land on it right away, but this was a necessary change going into this next patch.
Yeah, I think this is again like the Dragons, a preemptive change that needed to happen, and 90%. It is very tough to get 9 Yordles, right? Like you need all 6 Yordles in, and you would need 3 sparring gloves and 3 spatulas. So that's going to be a very unlikely scenario to happen. But when it does, you get the payoff, right? That's about as big of a payoff as you can get. And I guess that you deserve it at that point. But the 3 Yordle nerf is definitely, I think, good, because that 3-piece Yordle is just so strong, especially with Mittens now. It's just so easy to get 3-piece Yordle, and some of the Yordles are just so good in and of themselves, like Poppy and Ken and Gnar, like I said before. Last trade adjustment here is going to be Assassins. And there's a lot of text here. The 3-piece assassin trait is going to actually be the same now. The 6-piece assassin trait is going to have the same crit damage of 150% crit damage, but it's actually going to have a lowered crit chance, now going from 25% down to 20% crit chance. And the 9-piece assassin is going to have the same crit damage at 225, but is now going to go from 40% crit chance down to 30. So it's a minor adjustment of crit chance on the 6 and 9-piece assassins, which makes sense because we're getting a bunch of crit chance increasers in the sparring gloves items.
Next up is going to be the ninja stuff. Attack damage and ability power goes from 50 to 70 to 50 to 80. Ninjas have fallen out of favor, even though they ran rampant at the beginning of TFT. Yep. You rarely see it. I remember Ninja Elementals just being super frustrating back in the day, but now your 4 ninjas are going to get 10 more attack damage, and so we might be seeing a little bit more of that.
Yes, they are getting extra attack. I like ninjas. I think it's really only been oppressive or like borderline unplayable, and I'm hoping that this little nudge will make it a runnable option, but not oppressive. My good old nobles are getting a buff here. They're going from 25 heal on hit up to 30. I think this is, again, like nobles have been in that same spot where they're either unplayable or they're the best thing ever, and this little nudge back up will hopefully make them a chaseable option, which I think is what they're going for.
Yep, and next up will be Shapeshifter bonus health. Is going to be the same for your first 3, but it's going to get nerfed from 120% bonus health to 100% bonus health, which is absolutely necessary. And 20% decrease in health gain when you have all 6 Shapeshifters you're going to feel it. And just based off of our casting yesterday, Shapeshifters did reign supreme. And then last but not least is Rangers. 30% to 70% attack speed buff will go to 25% to 70%. So they're nerfing like that Glacial Elemental Ranger, where anything that had just 2 Rangers, they're trying to get you to try to focus in on 4 by keeping that at 70%. But those are the traits.
Those are the traits, and we will move into the home stretch here with the champs themselves. Anivia has been underperforming for a 5-cost unit, so we're changing her identity to be a strong unit that slows attack speed of the back line. She's getting a health buff from 700 up to 750, so she's now got 50 more health than Kaisa. Attack speed going from 0.6 to 0.8, so that's a pretty sizable increase in attack. Starting mana going from 0-100 to 50-125, so slightly easier, 25% or 25 mana easier to get that first alt off. And the ability targeting has gone from random targeting for Anivia's alt to the furthest target. Pretty big changes, but like I think mostly just like they're shifting what she's doing and making her a little bit better in the process.
Well, I think the starting mana is actually going to help a lot because who is in the back line usually? It's going to be your Dravens, your Ashes, right? And so now, not only are you targeting that, you're going to be able to ult a little earlier on and affect that attack speed earlier on. So it's not just about doing the damage either. It's about how much damage you're taking away from your opponents, and you're going to be doing that quicker this time around it's because you also have more attack speed.
Yes.
So we'll see, because Anivia doesn't feel like a level 5 unit right now.
Yeah,
to me at least.
She seemed all right, but yeah, it did seem very coin flippy. I've been on the opposite side enough times where if my Draven gets hit with that Anivia ult, I'm like, well, okay, I guess this fight's over. I'm just not going to be able to win. So definitely a good change for Anivia. Here's a big one, Boop. Is Ding Dong Kassadin's dead?
Ding Dong Kassadin might be dead. Kassadin has proven problematic as a DPS champ who can also gain a shield and also drain mana. That's what you call overtuned. We're shifting his identity into a frontline sorcerer and pulling out some of the damage. And I think that was their whole idea with Kassadin, was as a frontline sorcerer. He is melee. Anyway, attack damage is going to go 50 to 45, so he's lost 15 attack damage in the last 2 patches. Attack speed will be dropped by 0.5. That's pretty much negligible. His armor will increase 25 to 35, and then mana steal and shield power will go from 2040 to 60 to 2550 to 75. So that is a burf.
That is a good old-fashioned burf, but I think the intended burf that they were looking for, they didn't want Kassadin to necessarily be less powerful. They just didn't want him to be a DPS carry, an assassin.
Yep.
Now he's more of that frontline tank for sorcerers, which I think is what they wanted him to be all along, and they're just pushing that more down that line. I mean, the notable thing here, even though attack damage only going down 10, A, 10 is a lot. B, like that scales, right? So his level 2 is down by even more than 10 because it always scales linearly. Level 3 also going to be therefore going to be down even further than that. His crits, if you had IE or a different crit item on him, are going to be lower if you do make him an assassin. So he's not going to be that same powerhouse just instantly killing people. I think a Kassadin is still going to be a fine option potentially, but it's not going to be the same. You're not getting the same payoff that you did before. And I think he's going to be more oriented towards being a tank for sorcerer comps, which is what I think he was really intended to be. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, definitely, I think overall good. I think I have a suspicion that they might need to tweak Kassadin even more because it doesn't seem like it's enough, but we'll see how it pans out here. I think people are still going to be running Kassadin, myself probably included. Misfortune here. We're adjusting Misfortune to be a powerful auto attacker for gunslingers who rarely casts, but when she does cast, it's a big one. She's getting a health buff from 700 to 750. Again, 50 more than Kaisa. Attack speed going up from 0.85 to 0.95. So I think that might put her at like number 3 or 4 overall in attack speed. Mana is going from 0.75 to 0.150, so literally twice as hard to cast. Ability damage.
You guys ready for this next one?
Yeah, ability damage going from 900, 1300, 1700 to 1300, 2K, 2700. Now that last one is very rare because we almost never see tier 3 5 cost units. But the ability targeting is also going from her current target, so whoever she's attacking, to the furthest target. So almost certainly going to hit something at least most of the time now instead of it almost always missing.
Yeah, because like you would like be attacking someone, that person would die, and then all of a sudden you're just literally attacking air. But like the big thing here is that the ability damage is now at rank 1 just as strong as it was at rank 2. Plus you have auto attack speed. Plus you have more health, even though the mana is increased. And I don't know. Well, this has been a change that a lot of people have said that are going to bring Misfortune back. It does definitely, like as we've talked through this, it feels like they're trying to get gunslingers into the game again. And this is a good cap on that, right? Because Miss Fortune is an AD carry in League of Legends proper, and even though her ult is a big part of her kit, she also is really good with attack speed. One of her abilities gives her inherent attack speed, and we're moving closer to what I think thematically she should be too. And we're definitely going to be seeing some Miss Fortune coming up here.
Yeah. It's just nice to actually have Miss Fortune be an option that you are willing to take and not feeling super bad for it. Just being like, man, I wish I had a Jinx, or you know what, just another Lucian. I would take a tier 2 Lucian over Miss Fortune a lot of the time, but it's nice to actually have her be a pickable option here.
All right. Yeah. Let's do this, man. We're at the home stretch, guys. Thanks for hanging in with us, everyone who's been here the whole time, or if you're just joining. We're about done here, and then again, there are some really funny bug fixes that we'll talk about coming up.
Yeah.
Things that you're gonna turn your head and be like, what?
The bug
and so tier 1, so these are the changes. They're going by tier now, so they're small. Tier 1 is going to be a Mordekaiser. A couple changes. Mana will start 0 to 100 will now be 50 to 150, so he's going to ult sooner, which I think he needs. Mordekaiser spell damage is going to be
the same. It still needs 100 mana to get to his ult.
Well, yeah, but what I'm saying is since he's starting with 50, he's going to ult sooner, right?
No, because the difference between his starting mana and his finishing mana is still 100. So he's going to ult at this. His first ult is going to come out at the same time, but his second ult is going to be harder to get.
It's been a long podcast.
It's been a long podcast.
Anyway, so yeah, okay, we're getting there. I swear the quality will be maintained. Mordekaiser mana 0 to 100, 50 to 150. Mordekaiser spell damage 200, 325, 450 to 250, 500, 750. So that's a ton more damage. Not so much.
What?
Yeah, but level 2, 500 damage. So AP items might work really well on him. You might actually he could be an item carrier now. That's really interesting. I love putting items in Mordekaiser for some reason. Then last on tier 1 is Tristana spell damage. 60, 90 to 120 goes to 70, 110 to 150.
Yeah, the biggest thing for me is Mordekaiser. Like, he might be an item carrier. He might also be forcing a tier 3, because 750, come on, that's big. So I think a tier 3 Mordekaiser is like a runnable option now, like perfectly reasonable to do. And man, getting those ults off is gonna be brutal for the people on the opposing side at 750 damage. Crazy. For tier 2 units, we've got Blitzcrank getting a health increase from 600 to 650. Blitzcrank ability damage going from 100, 450, 800 to 250, 550, 850. Brahms mana going from 0.50 to 0.75. And Rek'Sai attack speed going from 0.65 down to 0.6. The big one here for me is Blitzcrank getting a 200 or a 150% buff to his initial ability damage. I feel like we might
Let's
actually
get those caps on him. Rabadon's death cap, Sorcerer Blitzcrank. Let's do it, folks. He'll reign supreme, one-shotting all those carries in the back line. And as we go through these patch notes, another thing that's kind of dawning on me is that they're really making positioning like really important going into this next patch. There's a lot of furthest enemies. Blitzcrank's getting a buff. With the dodge stuff, it's positioning is going to be increasingly more important, which could potentially make Hextech more strong. It's a lot to think about if you're on the balance team, but you're right. The Blitzcrank change here is pretty big. Brahms mana going from 0 to 50, 0 to 75. Braum with dodge, I think, is going to be pretty strong too, so I think that'll be good. And then Rek'Sai seems negligible, but they're just trying to tune those voids a little bit better going forward.
If you guys are thinking about putting your assassin item on Rek'Sai, think again.
You have 0.5 less attack, 0.05 less attack speed. Yep. All right, so tier 3, Ash's mana, 0 to 100 is 125. I would say Ash was pretty impressive. Katarina damage per tick is moving from 40, 60, 80 to 45, 70, 95. Gets another buff.
Let her rip.
Shyvana burn damage is 250, 375, 500 to 200, 300, 400. Again, shapeshifters are in a very, very, very strong spot right now, just trying to even it out. A Vigor spell damage, 300, 550 to 800, 350, 650 to 950, plus, again, his inherent ability to one-shot anyone who is lower than him in level. Vi health is 650. So brawlers are getting a bit of a buff here. They're getting a little bit of health. Vi spell damage. And for all of us who like building Morellos on Vi, this is definitely going to help out. 250, 450, 650, going into 300, 500, 700. Volibear health also is. It seems like across the board almost the brawlers are getting 50 health. Volibear health, other than like Warwick.
Yeah, Warwick isn't, which is
and
probably
Cho'Gath.
Yep, the two best.
Yeah. So Volibear attacked it. Yeah, Volibear health 700 to 750, Volibear attack damage 75 to 70. That is most likely due to what you were saying with more, like saying that Volibear will be good with a lot of these items. So that seems to be a preemptive nerf right there. And the Volibear attack speed going to be moving up 0.05 as well.
Yep, that is a Volibear burf if we've ever seen one. Yeah, make brawlers great again. All we see are knights and shapeshifters. I want to see some brawlers again. And Vigar, I always like Vigar. He's one of my favorite just champions in TFT, just because like he has such a cool like one-shotting a champ is just so strong. And of course Katarina, a personal favorite as well. So nice to see the buffs for the tier 3 champions. On to the tier 4, we've got Akali attack speed going from 0.7 to 0.85. Nar's health going down from 750 to 700. Nar's transform health going from 300, 600, 900 down to 250, 450, 650. Jinx getting a minor 0.05 attack speed buff. Kindred getting also the same exact 0.05 attack speed buff from 0.65 to 0.7. Kindred's ability duration going down from 456 seconds to 3, 4, 5 seconds. Sejuani getting a 50 health nerf from 850 to 800, and Sejuani stun duration going from 2 seconds, 4 seconds, 6 seconds to 2 seconds, 3.5 seconds, 5 seconds. Pretty big Sejuani nerf there. I also agree was needed.
Yeah. CC is strong. Outside of that, just small changes. Gnar, though, gets another health nerf after getting a huge buff a couple patches ago. I think that's good.
4 straight buffs, patches of buffs for Gnar was enough now. They need to tune him back down.
Tier 5, Swain damage per tick, 50, 100, 150 goes to 40, 80, 120. That's pretty big. Swain heal per tick is 40, 70, 100, 30, 60, 90. And Yasuo health will go 700 to 750. So the thing about Swain, too, is dodge will be very, very good on him.
Yes.
Especially anyone who can like heal like that. So like I think Gunblade will be good on people who can dodge. It'll be especially better on Kennen. And again, these are just like preemptively helping with those dodge things. But yeah, that's it for those champs. We're almost there, folks.
Almost there. Okay. I'm going to rattle through these. We already talked about Dragon's Claw. Frozen Heart, 30% attack speed slow, now up to 35% attack speed slow. Infinity Edge, we also talked about from 200% crit damage down to 150. Rapid Fire Cannon no longer grants attacks can't be dodged. Titanic Hydra is going from 10% max health in Splash to a 3% max health to the target and adjacent enemies behind them. That seems like a very big nerf, especially since, I don't know, because Titanic Hydra did not need a nerf.
Well, I think what it's doing here is that Titanic Hydra, because I actually specifically remember this. I built it on Braum just for the lulz a little earlier this week, and the splash like never hit anybody. So I think that just based on the angle of how you're being attacked, like you might even have some people behind you that it's not even hitting. So this way, it's a guaranteed hit at least to a couple people. So you're getting 3% more often and more frequently. I actually think this is a buff. So we'll see.
Yep.
And then Zephyr is now a unique item.
So you can't build 2 Zephyrs on the same champion. I don't even know what it does if you do that. I have no idea.
So
but we can't do it anymore.
Mort did say this. You can build it on multiple, so you can still build multiple Zephyrs. Just not on one person.
Right.
All right. Down to the bug fixes, my friends.
Yes.
Gangplank and Akali now have proper move speed.
Woo.
Ranger's Focus now properly grants 100% attack speed. That's good. Ranger's Focus can no longer stack on itself. Matchmaking is less streaky, so you're going to be facing hopefully the same person in a row less often. Shyvana's ability tooltip no longer says she prevents healing. Elise is this is my favorite one. Elise Spiderlings now have the correct stats.
So were they too strong or too weak? I'm confused now.
But they're the correct stats now. The range of Lucian's ability will always equal his attack range. Will be last. And that's it, folks. That is patch 9.19. We did it.
Yes.
We made it to the end. It was a marathon. You know, our brains got wrinkled and smooth and wrinkled again, but I think we're here. We've made it. We've arrived.
Yes, we have arrived, and I cannot wait to play this tomorrow in our real life world, but probably later today in podcast world. But yeah, guys, that's it. I don't have any more in me. That was a very long show. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Make sure you check out the discord.me/Little Legends Podcast, the new Patreon, patreon.com/Little Legends Podcast. We're going to be updating that, improving that. Make sure you let us know what you want to see there. Follow us on Twitter at LIL Legends Pod. Let's see what else. Prediction. Make sure that you're following and subscribing to the Predictions podcast feed. That is very, very important for us as we build out the show there. But before we go, Boop, where can people find you on the internet?
At Booposaurus Rex on Twitter.
Yes, and you can find me at _Blevins on Twitter. I'm going back to my original accounts. The League of Blev account will still exist, but it's probably just going to be doing retweets, at least for now. But guys, that's going to be it. Thank you, everyone, for listening, and we will see you guys next week for even more Teamfight Tactics action. Bye!